Always remember the kindness of your parents. The body is given by the parents, and even the power to hurt the body lies with the parents, not with themselves. In the eyes of the Chinese people, filial piety is the foundation of all virtues, and the starting point of all undertakings. Wang Yangming advocated the concept of filial piety based on conscience. He believes that the origin of all things is conscience. With a conscience, you will naturally be filial to your parents, from the bottom of your heart. Once conscience is blinded, filial piety is only a form of filial piety. Not from the heart of loyal filial piety. Filial piety to parents can not only have the appearance of fancy words and deeds, but also must have the love to really put into action. During the period of Emperor Wen of the Han Dynasty, there was a very famous person in Linzai. She was Qinyu Taiying, who dared to save her father. Qinyu Taiying's father, Qinyu Yi, was originally a scholar. But he likes medicine very much, and often sees a doctor for others, so he is famous locally. Later, he made a hasty order, but he was upright, unwilling to associate with officials, and would not kiss the ass of his boss, so he was very dissatisfied in officialdom and soon resigned to become a doctor. Once, Qinyu was invited by a businessman to see his wife. Instead of getting better, he died a few days later. The big businessman bullied others, and told the government that he had made a mistake in seeing the disease and caused death. Without a serious trial, the local officials sentenced him to corporal punishment. At that time, corporal punishment included pricking words on the face, cutting his nose, cutting his left foot or right foot, and so on, and wanted to escort him to Chang'an to be punished. In addition to the youngest daughter Taiying, Qinyu has 4 daughters, but no son. When he was escorted to Chang'an to be punished, he looked at his daughters and sighed. "It's a pity that I don't have sons. I'm all daughters. I don't have any useful ones in such an emergency." Hearing his father's words, Taiying was sad and angry. She thought, why is the daughter useless? Therefore, when the officer wanted to take her father out of the house, she stopped him and said, "My father usually loves me the most. He is too old to walk with instruments of torture. I will take care of him with me. In addition, my father has been wronged. I'm going to the capital to complain. Please do me a favor and let me go with you." When the government officers saw that the little girl was full of filial piety, they promised her. It was the height of summer, and the weather was capricious, sometimes rainy, sometimes sunny. When it was sunny, Taiying followed her father and kept wiping his sweat. On a rainy day, she opened her umbrella to prevent her father from getting wet by rain. In the evening, the little Taiying had to wash his father's feet to relieve fatigue. All this deeply moved the yeoman who escorted Qinyu. After a long journey of more than 20 days, they finally arrived in the capital. After completing the relevant formalities, Qinyu was immediately locked up in a cell. Regardless of fatigue, Taiying immediately began to run around, complaining for his father. However, as soon as people saw that the complaint was made by a minor girl, they ignored it. Taiying haunts that in order to solve her father's problem, she can only write to the emperor directly. So she found pen and paper and asked someone to help write about her father's injustice one by one, imploring the emperor to observe. At the same time, She also said that if her father really committed a crime, she would be punished on behalf of her father. The next day, Taiying came to the palace with a letter that had already been written in his arms. Just then, not far away, there was dust and the sound of horses' hoofs. And a speeding carriage came straight to the palace. Taiying thought, there must be a minister sitting on it. She had an idea, raised the letter with both hands and knelt in front of the carriage. There was an old man in the car. When he saw little Taiying, he went. He leaned over and asked with concern, "Little girl, why are you blocking my way here? Has someone bullied you?" Little Taiying told the minister everything about his father's arrest, and asked him to take the letter to the emperor. Hearing how earnestly she spoke, the minister agreed to her request. After reading this letter, the emperor was deeply moved, and when he heard that Taiying had saved his father, he admired him even more. After that, the emperor personally tried the case, and cleared the injustice for Chinyu. Perhaps there is no clear concept of filial piety in the young girl's heart, but she has a conscience, and it is this conscience that makes her have the simplest act of filial piety. She thinks about her father all the time, and thinks about things from her father's point of view. In fact, filial piety is really very simple. As long as you love your parents and family as much as you love yourself, and reflected in some small daily actions, filial piety has been achieved, and it is a person who really understands filial piety. It is the duty of every child to repay the kindness of parents' birth and upbringing. It is evil to be unkind and unfilial. Wang Yangming's view of filial piety says that filial piety is a manifestation of conscience, unkind and unfilial, which is that conscience is blinded, which leads to evil. From knowing filial piety to practicing filial piety is the process from conscience to conscience, and it is also required by the point of view of the unity of knowledge and practice. When our parents gave birth to us, they were tired and exhausted, which is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Therefore, as children, if they can truly experience the deep kindness and virtue of their parents, the depths of their hearts will inevitably arouse bursts of sorrow, and the heart of filial piety to their parents will arise spontaneously, and then be put into practice. If someone is indifferent to parents' love for their children, it will be very difficult for such people to get a peaceful and happy family and achieve great things. Only when you are sincere can you make your parents feel at ease. Filial piety must be respect from the heart to parents, a kind of conscious ethical consciousness and moral emotion, not just offering, otherwise it is not true filial piety. The most difficult thing for children to achieve filial piety is to be kind to their parents. Wang Yangming also believes that children should be sincere in filial piety. When you naturally think about the cold of your parents in winter, you naturally have to seek the truth of warmth. When you naturally think about the heat of your parents in summer, you naturally have to seek a truth of clarity. These are the conditions of a sincere heart of filial piety. Once upon a time there was an old man who lived a lonely life after his wife died. He has been a hardworking tailor all his life. But bad luck, he is penniless. Now he is too old to work. Yes. His hands trembled so badly that he could not pierce a needle at all, and his old eyes were so dizzy that he could not sew a straight thread. He has 3 sons, all grown up. married and have their own families. They are so busy with their lives that they only come back to have dinner with their father once a week. Gradually, the old man's body became weaker and weaker, and his son looked at him less and less. He thought, "They don't want to be by my side because they are afraid that I will become an encumbrance to them." He stayed up all night worrying about it, and finally he came up with an idea. One morning, he found a carpenter friend, and asked him to help him make a big box. Then he asked his locksmith friend for an old lock. Finally, he found a friend who sold glass, and asked him to come over all the broken glass he had. The old man took the box back, filled it with broken glass, locked it tightly, and put it under the table. When the sons came to eat again, they kicked their feet on top of the box. They looked under the table and asked their father, "What's in it?" "Oh, nothing," said the old man. "It's just something I usually save. That must be the gold he has accumulated over the years." The sons whispered. After discussion, they decided that the property should be protected. So they decided to take turns to live with their father and take care of him. In the first week, the young son moved to his father's house to take care of his father and cook for him. At last my old father got sick and died. The sons gave him a decent funeral, because they knew there was a large fortune under the table, and they could afford to squander a little for the funeral. After the funeral, they searched the house and found the key. When they opened the box, of course they saw broken glass. "What a disgusting trick," said the eldest son, "to do such a cruel thing to his son. But why would he do that?" The second son asked sadly, "We must be honest with ourselves. If it were not for this box, there would be no one to note until his death. Care about him. I'm so ashamed of myself," sobbed the youngest son. "We forced our father to deceive us because we didn't follow what he taught us when we were young." Filial piety is an expression of emotion from the heart. If there is no filial piety, there will be no true love. When fulfilling the obligation of supporting our parents, we should work for our parents from the bottom of our heart, and make our parents happy with a real filial piety.